Well, thank you very much, Dr. Neelian, for that kind introduction. And thank all of you for being here on a Thursday night to try to hear about this exploding problem, exploding in multiple directions, financially, socially, and of course, waistline-wise as well. I am not going to talk about Ozempic. I'm going to leave that to my colleague, Dr. Ard. Also, I'm a pediatrician. What do I know about Ozempic? But I do know a few things, and hopefully by the time I am done tonight, you will see Ozempic in a different light. That's my goal for you today. Okay, so I want you to look at the trends in obesity, adults on the left, children on the right, and what you'll notice is that things just keep getting worse, except in the 2 to 5 year old age group. We've sort of equilibrated. Not getting better, but not getting worse. And the question is, what happened over the course of the last 6 to 8 years that has changed the direction, the trajectory of that 2 to 5 toddler year age group obesity rate when everybody else has not had any benefit whatsoever? What do you think it is? What happened? We got rid of the fruit juice in daycare. That's what happened. Okay? We changed the environment, and when we changed the environment, the obesity rate changed. Duh. This is not friggin' rocket science, people. Okay? You can do this. It can be done. Now, in these other groups, they don't like it when you do that. And I was just on Capitol Hill 2 weeks ago talking about what we could do to get soda off the Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program. And I got to tell you, I was really surprised that the Democrats were saying we should be able to give soda to all of our people, whether they have diabetes or not. Really? This is what they were saying. So we have a big problem, and it's not going away. And the reason is because of this, because people want the pill. Well, I'm here to tell you there is no pill. There is a shot, but it's not a pill. The question is, does the shot work? Well, number one, the shot's expensive. We know that, and people are balking about the cost. And I will tell you that if everyone in America who qualified for a GLP-1 analog got it, that would be $2.1 trillion to the healthcare system. Currently, the healthcare system is $4.1 trillion. That would be a 50% surcharge over what we're paying now. We can't afford that. Medicare will be broke by the year 2029, and Social Security will be broke by the year 2034. You really want to do that? And it doesn't work in everybody. So the question is, who does it work in? And I had a little talk with Nancy Anderson and Corey Knopp about the fact that Novo Nordisk doesn't know who it works in. Why is that? That's a little bit of a problem. Okay. You get the idea. So I'm not here to talk about Ozempic, but I want this to color how you view all of the other talks about Ozempic for the rest of the evening. Now, it is true obesity is a complex problem because there are multiple inputs. There's energy intake, there's energy output, there's genetics, there's lifestyle factors, there's environment. And what we're going to talk today about is the one that most people don't want to talk about, and that is the environment. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the environment. But you will see why the environment turns out to be very important. Now, those of us who are steeped in obesity, like Dr. Ard and myself, we know that there are two competing models of obesity. These two models you've heard of. One is called the energy balance model, which I can sum up in one word, calories. And there's the other model, which is the carbohydrate insulin model, which I can sum up in one word, sugar. Calories or sugar? Well, sugar are calories, so it gets a little complicated. But basically, the energy balance model says it's about overeating because a calorie is a calorie. If you eat more than you burn, you will gain weight. If you eat less than you burn, you will lose weight. So clearly, we're eating more than we're burning, so because we're gaining weight. And that the brain is responsible for controlling that weight gain. That's what the energy balance model says. The carbohydrate insulin model says, well, only things that generate insulin generate weight because insulin is a required and necessary cofactor for all weight gain. There is no weight gain without insulin. Insulin is essential. And therefore, anything that raises insulin is a problem. Well, the thing that raises insulin is high glycemic index, carbs, and sugar. So that's where the low carb and the ketogenic diet concept comes from. Everybody with me so far? Okay? And what that says is that the problem is actually at the fat cell rather than in the brain. So it does matter. It's not like this is, semantic, okay? Because we really have to target the pathology if we're going to make things work. So let's take these two apart. Here's the energy balance model. Overeating on the left, physical activity on the left, okay? Altering energy intake versus expenditure, changing circulating metabolic fuels, and increasing fat storage. In other words, we gain weight because we eat more, burn less, or both. And this is what 99.9% of the population believe, except for Dr. Ard and me. Is there support for this? The answer is, well, yeah, a little, not as much as you think. It is possible to lose weight on a variety of diets, because maybe calories count, maybe. And consumption of ultra-processed food does cause weight gain via overeating due to altered brain control of eating. We know that too. So those things are true. But there are a lot of challenges to this hypothesis. Okay? Number one, for given caloric intake, BMI was higher in 2006 than it was in 1988 for the same caloric intake. In fact, our caloric intake has not gone up, but our obesity has. It doesn't address the role of developmental programming, the fact that there are critical windows. If it's all about calories, why would there be critical windows? The weight loss does not last because the body defends its own set point. And everyone who's ever dieted has experienced that. And calories don't explain that. Exercise does not induce weight loss. If it was about energy expenditure, exercise would induce weight loss. It never induced weight loss. Not one study on the planet shows that exercise induces weight loss. It induces muscle gain, which is really good for you, but not weight loss. And there's this thing called weight gain without overeating, which all of our patients complain about. All right. In fact, if you look at the total energy intake in orange down at the bottom here, there's been a statistically significant decrease since 2000. Yet our obesity prevalence has gone up. So there are some real problems with this energy balance model. Okay, let's get into the second model, the carbohydrate insulin model. Now, we know that insulin is super important for weight gain. There is no weight gain without insulin. QED, take it to the bank, okay? And all you have to do is take a look at a type 1 diabetic in ketoacidosis to know that that's true, okay? Insulin regulates the storage of all metabolic fuels, fat, protein, and carbohydrate. Excess insulin causes weight gain. All you have to do is look at an insulinoma patient to know that. And decreased action causes weight loss, like I talked about type 1 diabetes. So here's the carbohydrate insulin model. So a high glycemic index, high dietary carbohydrate, high sugar leads to insulin. Insulin leads to fat storage directly because insulin binds to the insulin receptor on the adipocyte and activates lipoprotein lipase to shunt energy into the fat cell to take it up. And that ultimately leads to increased hunger because you're partitioning it into storage. Therefore, you don't have as much in your bloodstream, and that raises your hunger. Okay. Now, there's support for this as well. Ketogenic and low carbohydrate diets promote weight loss more effectively than low fat diets in almost everyone's hands. Inhibition of insulin secretions increases weight loss in those patients who are dieting. And we know that the current Western diet is highly insulinogenic. But there are some challenges to this one as well. There's no focus on developmental programming in this one either. Okay, so what about these critical windows? What's going on in neonates? High glycemic index processed foods contain other ingredients as well, which might have their own effects. And finally, adipose tissue storage can occur without carbohydrate or increase in insulin. It's not all about insulin. So here are the comparisons between the two. And what you can see between these two is that both of them end up with positive energy balance and adipose tissue fat storage, but at a different point in the pathway. And it matters because we have to work as upstream as we can in order to effectuate downstream effects. So this is not a semantic issue. It matters. And that's why there's this big fight going on at the Obesity Society. Right, Jamie? Big fight. Okay? Every year. Gets bigger, too. So David Ludwig, who is one of the proponents of the carbohydrate insulin model, worked with Thorkild Sorensen to put together an integrated model of the two, which is over here. And you can see they call it a push-pull model. Basically, there's the energy-dense food on the left side for the energy balance. Here's the high glycemic diet on the right side, and you all end up in the same place. Is that it? Are they both true? Maybe. Or is there something else going on? There are problems with both of these, and here are the problems. Here's the first problem, on the left. Body temperature has gone down in America for the last 150 years. Why? Why has body temperature gone down for the last 150 years? If it's about energy expenditure, are we expending less energy? No. So why is body temperature going down? That's kind of a problem. And if body temperature is going down, that means less heat. And if it's less heat, that means less burning. And if it's less burning, maybe that's the problem. On the right side, lab animals, animals in captivity, who are eating their chow, are gaining weight just like we are. So it's not even our food, it's their food, or maybe it's not their food, maybe it's their water, maybe it's their air, because they breathe the same air and drink the same water as we do. Here's the second problem. We have an epidemic of obese 6-month-olds. They do not diet and exercise. I don't care what you say. They don't diet and exercise. We even have an epidemic of obese newborns. 4 separate studies, Russia, South Africa, Israel, United States, all demonstrate an increase in weight, in birth weight, of 200 grams over the last 25 years. And when you stick those babies in a scanner, it's all fat. So we have newborn obesity. I know they don't diet and exercise. So how do you explain that with either of these two pathways, these two models? So basically, the models are not really working, okay? These critical periods also have to be accounted for. What's going on in the first 3 years that's leading to this, that's allowing for all of these toddlers to actually be able to respond to reduction in fruit juice in daycare, okay? So epigenetics, developmental program, these are real things. And I actually edited a book called Obesity Before Birth back in 2010 because we knew it was a problem even then. Okay. So this all goes back to a guy in 1994 by the name of David Barker, who was a Southampton, UK epidemiologist who showed that the smaller you were at birth, the more chance you were of dying of a heart attack and diabetes later on, called the Barker hypothesis. They have found several cohorts, the Dutch hunger winter, what happened in the UK. All of these showed that there was something happening early on in life that was setting you up for problems later on. And you can see the hazard risk ratio for coronary heart disease right there on the right, less than 2,500 versus greater than 3,000. Bottom line, something's going on in utero. Now we have a whole section of medicine devoted to it called DOHAD, Developmental Origins of Health and Disease, okay? On Time magazine. Bottom line, a bad start lasts a lifetime, and we are all off to the worst start you could possibly imagine. And the reason is because there's stuff in the environment that is changing our metabolism. We call these endocrine disruptors. There are 300,000 items in commerce, chemicals in commerce today, and most of them have not been studied. And some of them are toxic because they alter DNA. We call them mutagens, and we have the Delaney Amendment to get rid of those, because those cause cancer. But there are a whole bunch of endocrine disruptors that actually drive weight gain. And we call those environmental obesogens. Okay? We've written several papers on this in biochemical pharmacology. These are chemicals that induce weight gain beyond their caloric equivalent. And here are the sources of the obesogens right here. They're in everything. They're in your vinyl flooring. They're in the flame retardants in your mattresses. They are in the binkies that your babies suck, in between bottle feedings. They are in your lipstick. They are everywhere. And they're in your food. Microplastics. Microplastics are environmental obesogens, and microplastics are now in everything, and they're in your liver right now, whether you like it or not. Okay? Now, it turns out that all you have to do is affect any one of these organs, and you are an obesogen. And that's a lot of organs, and these all do. And here are the different classes of receptor agonism that will drive adiposity, either through transcription factors on the left or through hormones on the right, and it's all of them. So basically everything's an obesogen. And the question is, okay, if everything's an obesogen, which ones are the worst? And that's where we're going. So obesogens can alter all these metabolic endpoints all by themselves. They can change you into a couch potato by itself, like, for instance, the 1.5 degree reduction in body temperature. They can change your body weight. They can change your fatty liver. They can start inflammation. They can alter your microbiome. They can change your leptin sensitivity. They can induce oxidative stress all by themselves. Now, one of the things you have to prove in order to promote this hypothesis is that this occurred before the obesity did. Well, guess what? It did. Here's the exposure, and here's the obesity curve. And you'll notice 3 years. That's right. And these obesogens tend to stick around. They don't just go away. The most famous obesogen is DDT. Now, DDT disappeared in 1972 because of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which was published in 1962. So we saw the end of DDT, but we haven't seen the end of its metabolism, because you can measure DDE levels in your urine right now, and it will predict how obese your child is at age 5. And how about PFAS? Everybody see the movie Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo? Okay, about Teflon. How many of you use Teflon pans? None of you? I don't believe you. I don't believe a one of you. You all did. Okay? Now they're gone. Okay? But you were exposed to these for a long time, and guess what? They're still, because they're forever chemicals, they're still around. And they are an environmental obesogen. So here's a sampling of what we are all exposed to, that babies are exposed to, that newborns are exposed to. Okay? There's the list on the left. Okay? Maternal smoking, air pollution, anything PM 2.5 or smaller, agricultural chemicals, food preservatives, and my favorite, of course, we're going to get to fructose. We're going to get there in a minute. Okay? And even non-nutritive sweeteners are environmental obesogens. And here's the human data that implicates them. And I'm not going to go through them because I'm looking at my time. Okay? But they're in the slide set. Bottom line, we have prospective correlation, and for a few we even have causation. Can obesogens explain why diets fail? The pounds lost study showed that the higher the PFAS concentration in the patient, the less weight they lost and the more weight they gained, exclusive of everything else. So here's the obesogen model. The obesogens on the left, they interfere with hormone signaling, leading to all of these metabolic changes, which lead ultimately to fat storage and weight gain. Looks just like the energy balance model, except it's not energy. So what's the support for this? Well, we have in vitro, animal, and human studies. Now we have the developmental and adult exposures to explain it. We can explain the epigenetics. We can explain the developmental programming. Okay? And human exposure is a variety of obesogens across the lifespan. Okay, what are the challenges? Well, we need developmental biomarkers, and they're hard to come by because no one's going to let you do that to a fetus. We need lack of data showing effects of obesogens in clinical type studies, and those are also hard to do for obvious reasons because they'd be illegal. Lack of data showing decrease of exposure results in lower weight gain. And that's the really crux of it. We have to basically show that we can get rid of these and actually change the paradigm. That's going to be the big one. Now, what we've also learned doing this work is that there's an intermediate both between food and between obesogens that is almost assuredly the driver of this entire phenomenon. And it is called reactive oxygen species, redox reagents. Okay, everybody familiar with oxidation reduction? Okay, NADH, NADPH, NAD, et cetera. Okay, those are signaling molecules. Those are autocrine factors within each cell that change cells' metabolism from burning to storage. And the reason is because all of the enzymes that are involved in energy metabolism are all kinases. They are PI3 kinase, AMP kinase, mTOR. The three kinases that determine whether a cell burns or grows are phosphorylated based on the reactive oxygen species concentration within each cell. And so you can turn a cell from burning to storage by raising the redox potential of the cell. Well, food can do that, or these obesogens can do that. So this is a way of being able to tie all of these together. So this is the model we're really talking about. Food consumption or ROSs all lead to changes in redox. Those redox changes lead to the increase in insulin, the change in food intake, the change in liver function, and that's what leads to the nutrient storage. And we know that there's redox sharing amongst the various organs via the bloodstream. So what happens in one tissue gets translated into others. And we know that all these obesogens that I've been talking about affect all these organs through redox, down at the bottom. So this is a real bona fide, plausible argument for what's going on that explains both the energy balance model, the carbohydrate insulin model, and the obesogen model all at the same time. And we know that the things that detoxify redox are all decreased in obesity, and they're all actually decreased by these obesogens. So is obesity really a metabolic disorder of the control of redox? And the answer is likely, because it changes the entry into our food supply, it changes our carbohydrate, it changes our overeating. So here's how we put it all together. Ultra-processed food at the top, obesogens on the bottom, leading to changes in reactive oxygen species, which are dangerous by themselves. Each of those has an effect in each tissue that drives the thing that it does to promote adiposity. And so you end up with increased fat, nutrient storage, and adipose tissue inflammation. So ultra-processed food, especially carbohydrate and sugar, and obesogens generate the redox and generate the ROSs. The ROSs are a misleading cellular signal of energy sufficiency. They tell the cell there's more energy there than there is. It's a mimic. It's a mimic of the energy in the cell, but it's wrong. By doing that, you end up changing function in each organ in an organ-specific manner, and that's what leads to the hyperinsulinemia, the hyperlipidemia, the appetite, and the fat deposition. Okay. Is there support? Yes, there is support. We know that the circulating redox state becomes more oxidized with age and disease. We know that the change in redox response to fuel consumption is very well documented, and we know that redox changes cell function in an organ-specific manner. This has been looked at 50 ways from Sunday in every organ you want, just not all at once. Thus far, though, we don't have a way of testing it because these things are in our environment and we can't get rid of them. So here's how we integrate the whole thing. Liver, fat cell, brain, pancreas. Redox is changing all of those to generate phenomena that ultimately lead to adiposity. So diet, obesogens are the drivers. Redox is the primary intermediate. The energy balance and carbohydrate insulin is the secondary intermediate, and weight gain is the outcome. And the ultra-processed food diet is obesogenic because it is redox potent. and it's driving all these phenomena. And we know that if you take people off ultra-processed food, they lose weight, as Kevin Hall did in his NIH study. The problem is that these environmental disrupting chemicals are hard to clean up. That's the problem. If they were, they'd be easy, then we could fix this. But as I asked the question earlier, what's the worst one? What's the one we could do something about today? And the answer to that is easy. Sugar. Because that is the ultimate redox generator because of its stereochemistry. And it's because the food industry put it there, and they could take it out if they wanted to. And this just shows that fructose generates 7 times the glycation and 100 times the redox as glucose. It inhibits mitochondrial function through redox. It kills cells, as you can see, MCD sucrose in the corner there. That's methionine choline deficient diet treated with sugar compared to starch on the bottom. I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to speed up here. And you can see all the dead cells because sucrose is a redox reactive oxygen species oxidant. And, of course, who gets it the most? The toddlers. Here are the 10 worst children's cereals. The worst one is 56% sugar. The worst one is 41% sugar. This is what's on the National School Breakfast Program. You want to know why our kids are obese? Here's why. Here's the school milk, okay? My daughter brought this home, M. Lustig. Notice when she was in 2nd grade, she said, "Dad, you're not going to believe this. There's Berkeley Farms 1% low-fat milk, 15 grams of sugar, all lactose. Here's Berkeley Farms 1% chocolate milk, 190 calories, 29 grams of sugar, high fructose corn syrup's the second ingredient." And most importantly, what is the largest fast food chain in America? Our nation's public schools. And there's the number right there. You fix the school food, you fix pediatric obesity. And you could do that tomorrow if you had the political will. Infants, same thing. Why we can't resist it? Because sugar's addictive. Anybody ever work in a normal newborn nursery? Anybody know what this is? This is called Sweeties. This is a 24% super concentrated sucrose solution that you stick the pacifier in, you stick in the normal newborn boy's mouth, and then do the circumcision. The Jews have wine, everyone else has Sweeties. For the same reason. Because young children prefer sweet, because those are the only taste receptors that are actually available on the tongue. And the commercial infant food industry says they don't add extra sugar to their food. Guess what they do? They just don't call it sugar. They call it apple puree or evaporated cane juice. Could this isomil be the reason for obesity in 6-month-olds? Take a look, 10.3% sugar. Coca-Cola is 10.5% sugar. It's a baby milkshake. And guess what? Nestle adds extra sugar to baby food in other countries because they can get away with it. And there's fructose in breast milk because of what mother ate. And so what do you think's happening to the baby? And this is true in fetuses as well. The more fructose that the baby is exposed to, the greater the number of adverse enzyme changes in the liver to generate that liver fat later on, as you can see here. So, finally, what's the definition of healthy? Because ultimately we need healthy food. We need healthy food for everybody, but especially for kids. Michael Pollan famously said, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." I got a problem with all 3 of those. Eat food doesn't tell you whether it's low fat or high fat or anything else. Not too much doesn't take into account mitochondrial dysfunction, which I think I have proven to you now. Mostly plants, just remember Coke, Doritos, and Oreos are all plant-based. And all of you people out there who think that somehow we're going to solve this with a plant-based diet, I got a friggin' bridge to sell you. It is not what's in the food, it's what's been done to the food and what they did to the food that matters. I suggest 3 different principles. This is how you determine whether something's healthy. This is how you determine whether something has a low redox potential. Protect the liver, feed the gut, support the brain. Any food that does all three of those is healthy. Any food that does none of those three is poison. And you can know just by looking at the food whether it satisfies all of these three criteria. And if we actually gave our kids food that did these three, this problem would go away. No Ozempic needed. So the science is clear. Less sugar to protect the liver, more fiber to feed the gut, more omega-3s to support the brain, and a limitation on emulsifiers to reduce inflammation. That's called a real food diet. That's what our kids don't have today. That's what we need. And that's what will fix it. And that's why we don't need Ozempic. So food can be medicine. Food can also be poison. And the trick is knowing which is which. And I've just told you how to figure it out. With that, I'll stop and I'll be happy to field questions later.